Hello and welcome. Today we are checking out Warhammer 40k Battlesector. This is a turn-based tactical classic, turn-based tactical strategy game being developed by Slitherine and published by Slitherine, who are sponsoring today. Thank you, Slitherine. Today's video is going to be a little different than usual because I've covered this game multiple times in the past. In fact, I'll be streaming it today. I'll have a link to that if you want to watch me play the game. Today, what I thought we'd do is we'd talk about Warhammer 40k Battlesector, maybe answer the question, what is the game, and is this game worth spending your money on? So I thought we'd talk about some of the things in the game, what has developed over the years, because this game's been out for quite a while, but it is continually developed over the years, and it changed quite a bit. And so this video is going to be just kind of an introduction and a is it worth your time kind of video for Warhammer 40k Battlesector. So to begin with, the game originally started out as just one campaign and like one skirmish mode, but there's so much more that's in there now. A key part of this game and the Warhammer universe, I suppose the first question is, do you need to be into the Warhammer universe to enjoy this game? I would say no. I will do my best today to kind of introduce you to the factions, though, and so you will be all caught up on what you need to know. You won't know all the lore, but you at least know what the factions do and where to specialize, because this is a simple, not simple, but an easy to get into, that's probably a better word, turn-based tactical strategy game. The complexity comes in the different factions. Each faction plays much different. Some are just big meaty units that go into battle. Some are ranged, stay at reach, flanking, and they all play differently. And that's where the real strategy comes into this game. So I think what we'll do is we'll go over the factions, we'll go over all the different game modes that are in the game now, all the stuff that has been added, all the custom stuff, and all the player-made campaigns and things that are in the game as well, the map maker, and just kind of like explore the game a bit to get an idea what the game is all about. So I think what we'll probably do first is we'll talk about the factions first, because that might be the best way of sort of introducing the game and what in the universe and everything. But the first faction we'll talk about is the Blood Angels. These are the guys that kind of came with the pack. These are kind of your standard dudes in heavy armor with big swords and tanks and jetpacks. The Blood Angels are very quick. They're very, very fast, maneuverable kind of an army. They got jump packs. They can jump around, and you get a few mechs, but nothing too chunky. But just enough to, have some big guns and stuff. Each of these, so when you build your army, and this is one of those games where like you will customize your own army, and you can use that army in multiplayer, of course. Slitherine even has like official multiplayer tournaments that they do every once in a while, or even in single player, of course. You can use these different armies that you build in single player, in custom campaigns. They have this dynamic campaign thing in there now as well, which you could use these for, and you can build your army like I'm doing here, swap things out, rename it, all that stuff, and basically customize the thing for your liking and however you want them to be. But Blood Angels specialize in like these quick jump attacks. They got the jump packs, get in there, attack, move around. That's what the Blood Angels do best. But next up, we've got the Tyranids. These are the big monsters. Big freaky monsters. They have some big freaky monsters. Where they probably do best is if you're into like swarm stuff. If you like swarms of bugs, couple big meaty guys and a whole bunch of swarms of bugs sprawling across the battlefield, and that's what you want with a Tyranid. That's what these guys do best. And the original campaign, the main story campaign in this game, is the Blood Angels versus the Tyranids. You are the Blood Angels. You got these bugs storming across, and you kind of deal with the swarms. We got the Necrons are up next. These guys can take a lot of fire. They're very, very meaty, I suppose. They regenerate is kind of the thing, and you could probably tell that just by looking at them. They're not necessarily quick. They're not necessarily tough, but they do regenerate, and they kind of, slow and steady. March across the battlefield is kind of what these guys do, and yeah, they all kind of look. They all have that look, and when you play the game in skirmish mode or whatever, there's all the battle effects are pretty cool. Some of them are more enjoyable than others. For instance, the Sisters of Battle, purge it with holy fire might be their line here, because that's what they do. They burn things, and there's a lot of flamethrowers going on if you have these guys out there. With each of these, some of these are more customizable than others, where you can see we've got we got a whole number of different units that we can choose. We can't take all of them because they're all worth a different amount of points, command points that you can use to build your army with. This is a 1,000-point army right here. If you wanted to make a 500-point army, you could do that, but you'd have to, of course, trim it down a bit or go all the way up to a 2,500 and more than that. A 3,000-point army if you want a big, chunky army. But each of these are customizable, and some more than others. So these are somewhat customizable, but like here's some heavy flamers, and you can change them over to, you know, you can do some customizing a little bit with these fellas, not these so much. A little bit on these, and you'll see that with some of the factions you can change them a lot, and some not so much, depending on how customizable they are. And speaking of factions that have a lot of variability, the Daemons of Khorne do not have a lot of variability because they only have 8 units, but they are big, meaty demons with giant axes and hellfire breath. That's what they do. Big axes, big claws, big swords. And there's not a whole lot of customizing here. The downside with that, I mean, it's easy to get into because you don't have much to choose from as far as your units. You got a lot of duplicates because you don't have much to choose from. However, they're not they're not as flexible, I suppose, because some of these factions are going to do better against others. And so you're stuck with what you got if you play with the demons here. Next up, we have the orcs. Orcs are ones that are very customizable. And you can see we got a ton of units here with orcs. And each one of these units has a lot of customizing. You can change each gun. Of course, it changes on the model here. And, well, some of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are, the ones I'm not clicking are not customizable. A lot of customization on these, on the orc units. And so they're because it's such a big roster, they're good at range, they're good at melee, they're very well rounded. You got a lot of options. You can kind of tailor them however you want. If you want a big ranged army, you can do that. If you want a up close and personal kind of army, you can do that with orcs. That's what orcs do. The Tau are a bit more specialized in like ranged combat. So if you want, like, these would be the elves, I suppose, where they maybe not accurate. I don't know my Warhammer lore, by the way. But these give me range warfare. They're quick. They get at a distance very quickly, and they can flank. They can move around the battlefield real fast. Don't get them in melee because they'll get hacked to bits. But you can keep them, as long as you can keep them at a range. These guys can do well. And that was Tau. Next up, we have Astra Militarum. These folks here are sort of a lot of variability with these guys because you can have range, you can have melee and that. But essentially what they do is these guys are the big guns, big tanks, supported by lots of infantry. Like infantry to kind of cover your back, and big tanks. You can customize those tanks a ton because you can switch all kinds of things out with each of these, well, with most of these tanks, and do some customizing there. But for the most part, big tanks, cheap infantry. We have the Black Legion up next. I think I've seen that these were mentioned as like the a nice beginner-friendly faction, just because they are so well-rounded. There's a lot of different units you can choose from, and they're also I think they're just fun to play. They're very chaotic, but if you want, you can get in there and just spam a bunch of cultists, and that'll get you far with these guys. But they're just a fun faction to play. And look at that guy. Look at that guy. Oh my. Then, last but not least, we have the new one. This is the newest DLC that came out, which is the Ultramarines. These guys are going to be like, they're Space Marines. They do play differently than the Blood Angels, though. They're more well-rounded rather than quick and fast. These guys are like big tanks and rockets and a little more, well, not so quick than the other guys. But you got your big mechs with these folks. And cover your big mechs. Nothing too flashy about them, though. But there's all the factions that are in the game right now, and you can play any of them. And as you create your army, when you go into something like one of the modes, you can choose your army. I see I made an army for the Sisters of Battle, and I come in here and I can choose my army in here as I build them out within here, or of course within skirmishes. So there's all the factions. So you got kind of like the basics of what makes Warhammer 40k Battlesector kind of special, because of the way the factions play. We'll talk about like what's been added in the game since the game came out 5 years ago. Originally, you had the base campaign, which is Age of Crimson Dawn, which I mentioned was Blood Angels versus Tyranids, and there's like a 20 mission campaign. I've heard somewhere like 20 hours of like just in that campaign for that one. The new stuff's been added in. We got Deeds of the Fallen is a new one, which is a new campaign. There's your story there if you want to go through, want to read through that one. But this is, I think, a 12 mission campaign, just similar to the other one. If you want something a little more dynamic, a little more varied, this is the Crusade mode that's been added in here now, where you start as kind of a smaller faction. You can see 590 points, 590. A smaller little faction, and then as you play the campaign, the dynamic campaign, you can like customize. You can kind of build up your units and specialize some of the units as you move on to mission to mission. And it's a pretty neat mode. I rather enjoy this one. It gives a little more variety, especially if you've made it through the main campaign. We've got Demonic Incursion, which the demons, as we mentioned before, Demons of Khorne, they are swarming at you. And so it's basically just an infinite waves. Well, you can mark that if you want. But waves and waves of demons. You choose your army, your starting army, and you big crumpet mob of orcs and just defend the center against these swarms and swarms of demons. Is that mode. And then there's your army management if you want to build up your army and customize and all that kind of stuff. You got Planetary Supremacy, which plays a little bit more like kind of like a 4X, but not really, where you choose your faction, you choose your enemies, and you build a planet, and this planet is played out on like a hex map, and so you try to take these hexes, and each hex, of course, is a mission against some like neutral faction or something, and then eventually you'll get the enemies. You can see them out there, and we're all kind of grabbing our hexes, and each hex you grab gives you new bonuses and new points that you can add to your army and perks, and you slowly kind of fill out the battlefield, eventually fighting against the enemy in this big hex map style of game mode. And then, last but certainly not least, is the custom campaigns. But I don't want to talk about that yet. We'll get there in just a second. We'll cover all the custom stuff later. There is a skirmish mode in the game as well. If you want to just play a map, just make an army and go do a big skirmish, you can do that. There is a randomize button. There's also a surprise me button, which is my favorite button in any of these kind of games. You can randomize it. It doesn't actually randomize, does it? You can randomize things and change whatever. But you choose your faction. You choose who you're fighting against. You, of course, choose your custom army if you want, and just fight it out on a map. And that's skirmish mode. Now, as to custom things. So, before we get to multiplayer stuff, we got custom stuff over here. User creations. You can make your own maps. You can make your own campaigns. And you can share those online. And so you can go on here and you can download. These are a bunch of different maps that are in the game that people have made that you can just very easily subscribe and add it into your game, which I have done. Well, I have one, Cathedral there, I downloaded. Or there's also kind of some campaigns, which is a bunch of different maps, 12 or 20 missions, whatever. And there's your little story. You start as Tau and you kind of work your way through the missions. You don't say how many missions there are. I don't see it. But again, there's a whole bunch of these that have been added in, player-made campaigns that have been thrown in here in there, which I think is fantastic. I love it when you get like custom-made campaigns and things. Just add so much more gameplay or time to the game with the custom stuff. Now, multiplayer, it's Warhammer. So multiplayer, of course, is a big deal. And you can play it in... there we go. You can play it in live, 1v1 or whatever against live, or you can play it asynchronous, kind of like, like chess, play by email kind of thing, where you play your turns back and forth. There's also a tournament mode. Slitherine, as I mentioned a little earlier, they do official multiplayer tournaments every once in a while that you can sign up for and build your army and then send it in the tournament. There's also a hot seat mode. I love it when a game has a hot seat. And that's in there as well for multiplayer. And is that it? Did I miss something? I covered the custom stuff. I think that's about it. This is on PC. It's on console as well. It also plays on Steam Deck. And I think that just about covers it. We talked about the custom campaigns. Yeah, there you go. So there's Warhammer 40k Battlesector. I hope this answered the question of what is Warhammer 40k Battlesector. Again, I'll have links. I've played the game a few times. I'll have links to those. Last time I played as the Sisters of Battle. And I'll be streaming it today, so I'll have a link to that stream in the comments somewhere. If you want to watch me play the game and get a better idea what the game's about by seeing it played, I'll have that in there as well. But there is Warhammer 40k Battlesector. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks again, Slitherine, for sponsoring today. If you have any questions, just feel free to ask them. I will do my best to answer them. I'm sure some other Warhammer 40k nerds in the comments will answer them as well. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.